Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast, The Wire Remix, Season 4, Episode 5, Alliances. This episode was directed by David Platt. It ranked 26th all time by Vulture. And of course, the epigraph by one Chris Partlow. If you with us, you with us. Um, the themes we have, I would say, corner kids versus stoop kids. So that was a theme that I looked at as we'll flush that out and discuss that
I like that too.
over the course of the episode. Corner kids versus stoop kids. Opening scene, we have our speaking of kids, we have Michael, Randy, Naaman, Kennard, along with of course Donut and Mikey, Randy, Kennard, Naaman, Dookie as well, discussing the killings that Chris Partlow is Snoop are doing in terms of walking people up into vacants. And as kids tend to do, a guy like Chris becomes a bit of a mythical type figure of a boogeyman, so to speak. So half the kids are like, he's this guy that's making bodies disappear. The other half of the kids basically don't know, and that seems to always be the case. You'll have somebody in the group that makes up these wild stories and gets everybody trying to believe these stories, and then you'll have a couple kids that just don't quite know or are on the fence in terms of believing this, and then you'll have the one kid that basically says this is bullshit. You know, I don't believe either one of y'all. So you kind of had that going on with this opening scene. As the funny part about this scene, so they're in a dark alley, they hear gunshots, and Michael able to tell the caliber of the gun. Yet when a glass is broken, they get scared to death of a crackhead walking coming out of the dark, and they scatter like roaches. So that is how the scene opened. That's how the episode opened. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a cool opening scene. I mean, it gives you again. It's like a movie, uh, and so it gives you that kind of like it gives you what like the personality, the interaction between the boys, just them. So that was fun to see. And then the second thing that you get is just kind of like this movie um, aspect of it, and then also it's a statement on the environment. So to your point, like everything that you mentioned was horrible. Gunshots going off, people stepping on crack vials, and then the crackhead, like like all that stuff. Like all that is a horrible environment, and so that's what they're saying. That's what the show's speaking to.
And on top of it, it's dark at night. Like there's no curfew for middle schoolers. Like these kids are out by themselves.
Yeah.
Seemingly late at night. So I don't know exactly what time it was or what month or it seemingly was so that gives you a sense as well of some of their backgrounds and what they're dealing with. Now we move on to Valchek Carcetti and Norman Wilson, of course, is Carcetti's campaign manager. Valchek, who seemingly knows, always runs into a piece of information that he uses to his advantage, seemingly lets Carcetti know that Norris, of course, the veteran cop, was taken off the Braddock case, and that Kima, who and the rookie was being put on. He gives his information to Carcetti, and of course, about what game Valchek is playing. Valchek is going to use this. Is trying to carry favor with Carcetti just in case down the road he may need a favor or two. So he gives him that information. Norman and Carcetti initially doesn't know how to play, what seemingly is a winning hand. So Norman, his campaign manager, advises that he that he give the information to Tony Gray, that Tony Gray can cipher more votes from Royce, and that there's no blowback on Carcetti. Now, Carcetti initially didn't want any part of it as far as him, speaking out, because he, to his point, he said it would seem like more the same, like just more the same in terms of like how he's been coming at Royce through the debates and what have you. So they decide to go the Tony Gray route. So this episode, I just thought about another thing too. Advice from assistants. So the assistants, lieutenants, the assistants in the drug world as well as the political world were winning in this particular episode. You see Norman give Carcetti wise advice, and we'll see later on the Marlo Chris Partlow scene in terms of advice in terms of dealing with a situation. So what were your thoughts on this scene?
Consigliere.
Yes.
Everybody has a consigliere. Everybody has something that's going to do. Real. No. Don't give Carcetti a pass. Homeboy is his snitch. Period. Point blank. It's his snitch.
Oh,
Valchek is there.
Yeah. No, that's his guy. No, that's his guy.
There.
Yeah, that's his guy.
Yeah, I know. No. Valchek is there on orders from Carcetti to get that information.
Yes.
Valchek doesn't care about that witness, get everything like that. He's getting that information for him. But of course, yes, we have established that this is a scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Right. That's why I was trying.
World. Yep. And so they are both taking advantage of each other, but do not let Carcetti off the hook. He is very much intentionally putting pieces in place to ensure that he is the mayor, which is not the democratic process.
No.
But it is, because that's what politics looks like. So that's what I'm saying. Like all of this is normalized in this world. But again, like I always say, The Wire wants you to question that. They don't want you just to go with the flow of what's happening. They want you to question that. So yes, it is the political system. Yes, it is how things work. But the question is, why does it work this way? Does it have to work this way? And is there any other better way in order to make things like this happen, or in order to make a better system?
So we go to Daniels, Marimo, and Perlman. They are, of course, discussing the wiretaps. Perlman is annoyed because Marimo wants to jump out on Marlo with these street rips, and both Daniels and Perlman have both been around the block, and they both are smart enough to know that this is not going to work. This is not going to work. And they both see the current state of the major crimes unit as Marimo to what we discussed in prior episodes is doing exactly what he was put in place to do. So he's gonna go through he's gonna go try to attack Marlo through street rips, hoping that Marlo is in the room with dope on the table, which we know and which Daniels know will not be the case for somebody of that of Marlo's stature. Perlman is annoyed because not only because of Marimo, but she's also annoyed because she realizes that she knows that Marimo is a result of what Lester did in terms of the subpoenas. So that's part of her frustration as well. What were your thoughts on this quick scene?
Set up.
We go to Bunk and Freeman. So they're in the medical examiner's office looking for extra bodies in regards to where Marlo is putting the bodies. So they're going to be on that, throughout the course of this episode. They were asking the medical examiner in terms of has he been receiving any abnormal use, not abnormal, but any extra bodies outside the norm. And they get no information in terms of that, of nothing that could help them as they hit a wall in regards to that. What were your thoughts?
Set up.
We get to class. We go to Prez and his class. So Prez decides to kind of change things up in terms of he's now going the route of, and we've seen this in education, of course, of incentives. So he's going to allow students are going to be allowed to earn stickers for doing work and what have you. He also sets up a in his way of a discipline system to where he's giving out detention for if work is not done. So Prez trying to make some hay with his classroom, trying to get his classroom in order. What were your thoughts?
It's set up, but it's the setup of showing us there's a reason why we need to see what Carcetti looks like now. So that's as much as I go into it. Setup.
You mean Prez?
Who did I say? Carcetti? Yeah, Prez Belusky. Sorry.
Speaking of Carcetti, we go to Carcetti. No, not Carcetti. We go to Colvin and the academic Peretti, and of course Grace, Miss Sampson, the teacher. They're discussing the program, and Colvin comes up with the idea, basically saying that we need to identify, separate the corner kids from the stoop kids, and identify. And basically, this is a callback to. I feel this is a callback to Amsterdam in regards to in regards to separating, taking the corner kids out of the classroom. And before they even get to that point, in terms of doing that, Colvin comes up with the idea of saying we need to establish a different who are the corner kids and who are the stoop kids. So from that standpoint, and he asks, and Sampson basically says they will they will show up. You will see the difference. It won't take a lot to see the difference between those two types of kids. So she's on board with his idea. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, a very, very simple classification. And they needed to keep it simple because the show is talking to the audience now. They're not talking to people who know what the hell this is all about. And so to your point, it is a callback to Amsterdam, and the overarching issue is, all right, do we want to actually solve problems or just talk flowery language about it and put more of the same on these institutions? In particular, we're talking about education right now, but then also we've been talking about the police department. Also, we've been talking about the political system. And so all these are huge systems with big, complicated questions, and therefore the answers will be complicated. And so the solutions of both Amsterdam and in this aren't the best solutions, but what Colvin represents is somebody who's trying to do something. Yes. He doesn't, especially in this season with education, he doesn't have the experience to do this in particularly, but at least he's trying something. And so it's like, all right, if this isn't a good idea, well, then what is a good idea? What can somebody come up with? How do you get your hands dirty? How do you get into the work? That's what the show is asking us with these scenes.
We go to Prez back working with his class, with the class. So he's trying to make a connection with Michael. Michael was kind of despondent, and really not responding to Prez. So Prez, Prez is saying, I know you can do the work, and Michael's paper is empty, no work being done. So Prez trying to make a connection with Michael and it's not working. Then some of the students get not disrupted, but get distracted as the vice principal was shaking bushes. Naaman recognizes that his blade drops out of the bush, um, and then Prez makes a couple of rookie mistakes in regards to how he dealt with the situation. So he is right. I mean, right next to Naaman, to the point where he follows Naaman back to his desk, and then finally Naaman responds, and they get into a argument, and this leads to Naaman being him giving Naaman detention. What were your thoughts on this scene?
It's showing. I mean, set up showing all the boys' personalities.
So we go to Marlo and Chris. So Marlo and Chris are discussing the fallout, of course, from Marlo being robbed by Omar. So, of course, Marlo wants revenge on Omar and was willing to go the similar route that Avon Barksdale took at going after Marlo, putting a bounty on him. Chris decides wants to go in a different direction. Says, Barksdale just looked weak when he was tearing up the town, tearing up the town and looking for in terms of looking for Omar. And Marlo, he tells Marlo, we'll go at him another way, but and basically says we don't say anything as of right now. We're just going, think of a plan, think of the plan, think of the direction that we're going to go in, and not put word to the street about any bounties on Marlo. So, there was a time where, seemingly a while ago, that Avon and Stringer had this similar kind of connection when they were actually on the same page. So you see that with Marlo and Chris. You see Marlo's respect for Chris, despite the fact that Marlo is clearly the one in charge. He respects Chris's knowledge and respects Chris's strategy in regards to doing business. What were your thoughts on this?
Yep, you named it. Set up.
So we go to Sherrod. We go to Sherrod, Bubbles, and a new character who will play a vital role in this season as a big character. He's going to be a major player moving forward. So Sherrod is on the corner. He's out of school, and Bubbles, was looking for him. He finds him, tries to get him off the corner, and another dope fiend comes up and asks for $4, and then he proceeds to put his hands on Bubbles. He beats up Bubbles and takes a vial out of Bubbles' shoe and says, "I don't need the 4 now." So he punches Bubbles in the nose. Bubbles is bleeding. Bubbles, is around a bunch of people, embarrassed around a bunch of people. Sherrod, of course, doesn't do anything. This guy was a bigger, he's a big dude, a bigger guy, taller guy. So it's a taller guy. And you see Bubbles. You see the first of many interactions that's going to come between this guy and Bubbles. What were your thoughts on the scene?
It's set up, and that's probably the only thing I can say.
Yeah, it's major.
I mean, all of this is building towards something. I don't even want to give the hint that you gave. All this is building towards something, but it's going to be very, very hard to talk about it along the way.
Yes, yeah, no, it's definitely a major setup. Definitely keep your eye on this particular character.
Yep, Bubbles got beat up. Pay attention to the person who beat him up.
Yep. And also the fact that Sherrod is out of school and on the corner. So keep your mind.
Has Sherrod ever been in school and off the corner?
For about 30 seconds.
Yeah, for 30 seconds. Yeah. So anyways, I'm joking around, but that's kind of like his disposition. He's always out of school.
Yeah, he's been out of school. Yeah, I know he's never out of school. He never really was in school, but I don't think he was on the corner though. I think this is his first.
Yeah, he was. He was on the corner.
Doing
he's a corner boy.
Okay. So we go
Yeah.
to Royce. So Royce is in the bathroom. He's about, Royce is in the bathroom. He's still trying to change his look up. We can move on from that. We'll flush that out later. Then we go to there were about 3 or 4 scenes where you saw Royce and Carcetti going back to back to back. You see Royce worrying about his outward appearance, and you see Carcetti actually getting stuff done in terms of meeting with the public. And then it wraps up with Royce getting complimented by his chief of staff on his new clean cut look as far as shaving his mustache and beard. And his chief of staff basically says, you're going to surprise him like you did in 98 and 98. So yeah, I was assuming he's referring to a prior election that Royce won. But Carcetti is the one that's actually meeting with people, talking with different bases, black, white, and like I said, Royce was shaving. What were your thoughts on this sequence of scenes?
Yeah. It is the incumbent versus the candidate. And so, or is that the right language? I can't. It's late. But it's the person chasing, pursuing. I'll do the famous sports analogy. This sums it up. Royce is the 4-time champion. He's a 4-time champion.
Right.
This is what he does. He wins chips. And Carcetti is the up-and-coming team chasing him. And so the champion, however you can basketball, football, boxing, baseball, whatever, the 4-time champion is, he'll turn the switch on when he needs to. Do the things that he used to do against those other people. But the problem with that is that, as we know, when you're the champion, you are the bullseye. And you not only have familiar foes coming after you, but you have these upstart young foes coming at you from out of a different direction. So you just got basic hunger of somebody who hasn't been there before that's there. And then, of course, what they're also trying to show, the difference between, is that Royce is content. Carcetti is not. And so that is also in each and every one of their interactions. Royce doesn't really want anything to change because he is the status quo. Why would he want the status quo to change? Carcetti is not the status quo. He very much wants everything to change. And so that's what you're seeing after it. Also, another great analogy I have in my mind is Great White Hype. If anybody hasn't seen that movie, go see that movie, and then you'll understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yep. Great White. So
Royce is Marlon Wayne's character, not Marlon Wayne, Damon Wayne's character.
Damon Wayne's character,
yeah. It wasn't clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Watch the movie, and then you'll know what I'm talking about. In that analogy. I love that analogy. All right, go ahead. Sorry. I'm done.
Yeah, Royce is going to, going inside, going in his bag as far as, like you said, going to things that's worked for him in the past. And,
sure.
Mm-hmm. And why not?
Dust off that old playbook.
Why not? I just thought about you can make a correlation between Royce, a direct correlation, and the similarities really between Royce and Avon Barksdale's character. Really, I mean, in terms of the old heads, the status quo, not really willing to change with the times, going to the
keep on building that. Look at every institution they brought up. Keep on building that.
Yeah.
Look at everything they brought up. Keep on. I'm just saying, keep on building. Keep going with that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would think Carcetti definitely could be, and I've said it before, Carcetti definitely could be like Marlo, somebody that is this new wave of type politician, not new wave type politician, but but somebody that that's kind of going under the radar when he probably shouldn't be under the radar. And that,
Yeah.
he was a smaller, the smaller entity. Royce got the money. Avon had the, had the name, the Barksdale, the towers, even before they fell, all that name recognition. So you can really, in terms of like the street versus the politics, definitely like how that can be connected with those with Avon, Royce, Carcetti, Marlowe. So Royce gets complimented by his chief of staff. And you're a chief of staff, that's your job. You're supposed to, keep everything positive. Once once you're a candidate in a certain headspace. So we move on to Norman and Tony Gray. So Norman goes to meet Tony Gray. He gives Tony Gray the information about, of course, the cop being taken off the case, the Bragg case. And Tony Gray, of course, doesn't see this coming, but Tony Gray finally hit to what Carcetti is trying to do as far as siphoning points from Royce, and also realizing that Carcetti wants to avoid any blowback. So he recognizes that, and Norman tells him frankly, flat out, hey, you can't win. But if you play your cards right, you can maybe make a run at a legislator or a congressional spot, and that logic, of course, makes perfect sense because Tony Gray, even Tony Gray, probably in his heart of hearts, realized that he is not going to win. So he adheres to Norman's advice from that standpoint. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Yep, shut up. You named it.
So we go back to Prez in the classroom. He's holding kids for detention, for not doing work, also, for behavioral issues as well. I got speak. So he gives the girl Zenobia. She gets detention, right, for saying I don't want this pencil. Like, dude, you did take a pencil out your hair. Like, come on, man. You couldn't get that wasn't. I wouldn't want a pencil out somebody's hair either. So, but she gets attention for that. And then Naaman, so he holds the class for detention for almost an hour, not the entire hour, but the message somewhat gets through to the classroom. As he starts to try to put his foot down, you see Naaman comes back into the classroom and apologizes for cursing him out, and then you have him give Mike. He gives Mike detention, but the kids tell him Dookie and Randy, not Dookie, yes, Dookie and Randy say that Mike can't make it because he's taking care of his little brother, and then you see Press not show much empathy as he responds, well, he needs to get somebody else to do that job for him. And the kids tell him, well, he can't because his mom is on drugs. And then you see him give Duquan some clothes and some toiletries as well. So a lot going on in this particular scene in regards to the kids, in regards to also Prez trying to find his way in terms of managing his classroom.
Yeah. Like, again, I can't say this enough. The adults don't matter. I'm just going to, I want to let that statement lead like that. The adults don't matter. This season is about the kids.
Yeah.
And so in that scenario, in that situation, what we are supposed to be looking at, what the camera focuses on, everything is her face and everything that she's going through. We know, and the reason why they're focused on just for people who don't get it, know that all of that, none of that was about the pencil.
No,
the pencil didn't matter. None of that was about the pencil.
She has some issues.
And so, but people who don't work with kids or who are interacting with kids, that like everything like that. Because remember, The Wire's teaching as well as putting on the show, as well as doing a show right here. This is an insight that a lot of people don't get a chance to see. So they don't know this world. So they have to build out everything for them. And so in terms, in terms of like the reason why I'm saying that is the camera lingering on her face and her actions
for a reason.
are
Yeah.
the cue to the audience that this is like pay attention to her,
Right.
not the words that are coming in her mouth, her
Yes.
and her react. So anyway, so that's what was going on in that scene.
So to your point, I think the writers were trying to speak on that with through Naaman's words. So Naaman comes in and apologizes, and he says, and Prez says, "I know you can do the work." And then Naaman says, sometimes the evil comes out of me sometimes the evil comes out of me, demons come out of me, whatever, when I can't, and I just snap. That was, so he's describing himself, but I think the writers were also talking about Zenobia as well. So I think when Naaman is describing himself, you can that those same words could be spoken upon in regards to Zenobia and what's going on with her. And I think probably, we don't know this for sure, but probably similar to Naaman, there has to be more likely some home issues from that standpoint.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. No. There's no might about it. Like, this is clearly what this show is talking. I mean, I have a lot to say more. Sorry. Because I have to go after, were you done? Keep going. Sorry.
No, go ahead. No, I was done. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So there is, so that's the base bottom line of this system. The reason why these kids are effed up is because the city is effed up. The schools are effed. I mean, the reason why the schools are effed up is because the kids are effed up. The reason the kids are effed up is because their home life is effed up. The home life is effed up because the city is effed up. That's the line. That's the line. So yes, every child in here. I'm not saying every child, of course, has a bad home life, but what this show is trying to say with the children they're spotlighting is that there is a lot that is going on in this city, and it is impacting the kids greatly. And they're giving you specific examples of what that looks like. So let me decode that statement, because you're right. That statement was about Zenobia, but that statement needs to be decoded a little bit further. So that people don't misinterpret it. Because what I do not want to happen at all is for anybody to think that these kids, these actors, the portrayal of these kids is for anything to be demonized. Because the show's not trying to do that. And we damn sure aren't trying to do that. So I need to decode that. When she comes in and says, or when Naaman comes in and says, I got the evil inside of me,
Yes.
and sometimes it just comes out, what that means is that there is an anger there's an anger and a rage that comes from institutional racism and poverty. That's what the show is trying to say.
Yes.
Period. Bottom line. That's what that demon is. And it's inside of all of us who experience it. Whether you live in Baltimore City Project, DC Project, New Orleans Project, LA Project, whether you live in Georgetown here, wherever way you want to describe that, those people who go through this have that demon inside of us. Me, Robert Sapp, have that demon inside of me. You have that demon inside of you because you have gone through that. Now, what maturity does is allow you to work with all of your foibles, all of the things that are there. These kids don't have that chance yet because they haven't had the chance to completely and fully grow up and be realizing to their actualized self. But then again, the system isn't going to let them be their fully realized self, which is again also what the show is pointing out. All right, I'm done.
No question about it. So we move on to, and also I mentioned that he gives Dookie some clothes and toiletries. Remember that for later on in this episode. We go to Prez. So Prez is walking out. He's having a conversation with Randy and Dookie. And if you want to, I've spent last couple of episodes, and we've done. We've had scenes where Prez makes mistakes, has made rookie mistakes, as we know, as we know that was going to happen with the first year teacher. But now I have to give him some credit because as he's walking out with not Naaman, with Randy and Dookie, he's having a conversation with them, talking about what they want to do in life and things. He's starting to build a relationship and and build rapport with that. Also on top of what he's doing for Dookie, that shouldn't be ignored by any stretch either. So he's having a conversation with them about the NBA and NFL. That and Randy says no, I want to own my own store. And Prez says, "Oh well, you're gonna need to do a lot of math for that to do that." And then we see that his keys are of course locked inside his car, and they get Donut to get Donut to get the keys from outside his car, to get the keys from inside his car. As Prez was about to call AAA, but they got to get Donut to take care of that. What was your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, go Donut.
Yeah, Donut.
That's my yeah. Go Donut.
Yeah, nah, Donut.
That's my thought.
Donut.
Yeah, no, set up. This setup. It's about the kid's personality.
Yeah, it is about
in this scene. I mean, I think the most important part of it, what you said, was just like, Randy saying, I wanna own my own store one day.
Yes. So we go back to Sherrod and Bubbles. So Sherrod returns home to Bubbles at the end of the night. Bubbles is already in the bed. Sherrod and Bubbles just flat out tells him, the corners will use you up, and then and said basically, talks about what transpired earlier in the day with him, getting beat up by the crackhead, and basically says, you can either go back to school or it's out the business. You can stay here for tonight. And then you see at the end of the scene, Bubbles, look, his dignity. I mean, obviously his pride and dignity has been hurt, but he also looks, he looks kind of, I don't want to say despondent, but he looks to be full of shame towards the latter part into the scene, in regards to what he's doing or what he's not doing for this kid. What were your thoughts?
Yes, you named everything. There's nothing to add.
So Bubbles, so they, so we move on to Royce and his chief of staff. Royce is in a meeting, a strategy meeting. Then his chief of staff breaks in, not breaks in, but interrupts the meeting to see that that Tony Gray is on the news, and Tony Gray has exposed the information on him taking Norris, or on Burrell, or people Burrell and he taking Norris off the case. It's on all over the news. You see, they show the police are watching as well. You see Greg's be described, of course, as a rookie cop in homicide, and Norris, of course, knows he's the one that, as the veteran cop that got taken off the case. So now, Royce. Now Royce has some real issues in regards to what's going on with this. What were your thoughts on this thing?
Set up.
We go to Randy. Naaman, Mike, and Snoop and Chris. So Snoop and Chris come to talk to Michael. Originally, they were going to walk him. They wanted to walk with him, but the kids, give credit to Naaman, thought were thinking on their feet. They said, we're thinking on their feet, as they called Chris and Snoop by name. Matter of fact, you heard Naaman say, Snoop, your sister's in my class. And it was all a strategy to keep Michael within to make sure that that Michael did not walk with Snoop and Chris. Then Michael says, "I'm good here." So Chris tells them to get out to run along. They go around the corner. They go around the corner behind the wall as Chris is trying to recruit Michael into the Stansfield group or the Stansfield organization. Um, and he says basically, we take care of our peoples. He basically was giving him a number of compliments, and then Snoop interjects as Michael is not responding, and then Chris checks Snoop, tells her to relax, tells her to kind of relax, and then you see Chris gives Michael a wad of money, and basically now he is on, of course, Marlowe's. Well, he's been on Marlowe's. He's been on Marlowe's radar, but now they're really putting the full court press as far as recruiting him. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Shut up.
So we go to Royce and Burrell and Ross. Royce just completely rips Burrell about taking Norris off the case. Burrell's retort, of course, was, "You told me to slow down the case," which in which he was right. You did tell him to slow down the case.
You did say it. You did.
He eventually puts Burrell out of his office and keeps Rawls. Now during the scene, it was something real subtle that happened when they are talking to Royce, talking to Burrell. Rawls kind of shakes his head as if he disagreed with what Royce was doing, what Burrell did. They noticed this, keep him and keep him as Burrell walks out the office or gets put out the office, and then Burrell attempts to make his Rawls attempts, of course, to make his move to try to get in good with Royce. Says that says Urban Burrell's a good man, but I disagree with the decision. I want to do right by this police department if you give me the opportunity to. And Royce tells Rawls to go fix this, and I won't forget it. So we see Rawls making his move, attempting to make his move. What were your thoughts on this scene?
It is. I mean, it's set up, of course, and they're pointing out the part of they're pointing out that or they're showing how there are no longer Royce is losing his people. That's the way I say it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
And whatchamacallit doesn't even know he's not in the loop.
Right. Yeah.
Burrell doesn't even know he's not in the loop.
Right. So we go to Chris, Marlowe, and Old Face Andre. So Old Face Andre comes up to where Marlowe stays or Marlowe operates. He and they tell him, they give him instructions on how to give him instructions on setting up Omar. And then you have Chris saying that, of course, Pop Joe wanted to meet with him again because he knows who he knows about the card game. So that Pop Joe had some information on the card game. So you saw that was in play. But more importantly, they give Andre instructions in regards to setting up Omar. What were your thoughts?
Set up.
We go to Prez and Michael. So again, Prez tries to talk to Michael. tries to reach Michael in regards to him not going to detention. Um, again, Michael is not responsive to Perez at all. And then you see Perez give Duquan a sandwich and also money to get a soda, get a soda. So you see him, and I think what this depicts is, yeah, he's not making inroads with Michael, but he is gaining the trust of Duquan. So I think the overall point in this is that a teacher's not going to reach every student. What is your thoughts?
You gotta think of what Michael. Again, the teacher doesn't mean anything. It's about the boys,
Right.
And so you gotta think about Michael's disposition. No adult is getting to him, right? Like there's no way of what we know, what we think we know about where he's at. And it's set up, but it's given us windows into each of those. Michael's not interested in that, but Duquan is. And so I would flip that and say, a teacher can't reach every child, but we need to pay attention to the ones who are reaching out to us. And that's what he's doing.
Yeah. So we go to Colbin, the principal, the vice principal, Donnelly, and also Peretti, who's working with Coleman. They start to round up some of the kids who are going to be the corner kids. Donnelly recommends that they go, of course, to 8th grade kids, and that they narrow that number from, they were originally going to start with like 40, but she thought they should narrow that number to around 10. Of course, naming Bryce, his name comes up. She says he's the pick of the litter in terms of the corner kids. And then you hear Colvin, you hear the principal. The principal goes to bat for the program and says, the principal goes to bat for the program, and then you hear Donnelly, the assistant principal, says he just says that the principal was a good man, and he just went out on a limb for you in a system that normally you will use a chainsaw for that limb. What are your thoughts on this?
Set up.
So we go to Freeman and Bunk. They are still looking for bodies. They're in the woods. Freeman, of course, used to be in the service as a cadet. So he was describing some wartime strategy in terms of not looking for a lot of bodies at the same time, but one in particular. So he was discussing that. Bunk is frustrated, following around Freeman with this on the not seemingly wild goose chase. Right now they have, again, no idea in terms of where these bodies are being put. What were your thoughts?
Set up.
We go to Marimo and the Western District. So Marimo is giving out strategy in regards to these raids that are coming up on in terms of raiding corners for against Marlo Stansfield. Perman and Dance, of course, are against it. And even when the officers had any questions, Marimo, of course, didn't take any questions. What are your thoughts on this?
Set up.
So Kima and Landsman. Landsman tells Kima that that Norris is back on the case by Rawls's orders, and says that we're going to put it out there in the media that Norris was never off the case. So they already are playing the media spin. Landsman explains, Kima, of course, is frustrated by this, as feel like she was used. Landsman says this is homicide. It's not the major crimes unit where people don't. He said where people don't supervise you. He said up here they know our names, their faces.
They do.
So up here they know our names and faces. And he says, Lanza basically says, "Look, I'm going to carry their water. I didn't like the decision, but you know what? I do what I told, and that's why I'm still standing and will still be standing." So everything you need to know about Landsman, you could have found out in this one scene without even watching the show up until this point. He lets you know about everything about how he moves, how he thinks, and what he does. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean the Landsman character. So I agree with everything you said. So the Landsman character um, is interesting in that respect because he's also one of the very few characters on this show who doesn't want to move anywhere, who's not trying to move to a higher position and use da da da. He is quite comfortable being in middle management,
Right.
and loving it. Just enough responsibility, not too much.
Yep. Yeah. So we go to Randy and Duquan. Uh, Randy confesses to Duquan about his role in Lex's death. Then Duquan says that Duquan, it was a confessional scene. Duquan says that he saw Chris walk a victim into a vacant. So you have these two characters confiding in each other during this particular scene. Of course, keep your eyes on the Randy Lex aspect from that standpoint. What were your thoughts?
Set up.
So we go to the news conference with Rawls. Of course, Rawls spins the whole story about Norris being taken off the case. Tells the media that Norris was never taken off the case. Despite the media saying, the media said we had some sources that confirmed that said he was, and Rawls says, well, I'm in the police department. I say that never was the case. So Rawls is playing, is doing exactly what seemingly what Royce wanted him to do from that standpoint. So Norris is back on the case, and he attempts to spin it to where Norris that wasn't even a consideration, that Norris was never off the case. What are your thoughts on this scene?
It's all this is setting up for down the road. It just hit me as I was listening to you talk. It's just they are doing a great job. The show, of just kind of like showing us how this whole thing works from their point of view, right? Like, how does a mayor how does someone who's not supposed to be mayor actually get there? What are all the moves they need to make in order to make it happen? And so that's it just dawned on me. So this is setup. It's all a big setup, but they're also, the setup is showing you how it goes down, giving you like a little bit of a picture of it.
We go to Royce and Delicate Watkins, a drunk Royce, by the way. So Royce has had a long day. It seemingly was in the evening, and Watkins is just sitting there listening to him complain about firing Burrell. And Watkins says, "Hold on, you did tell him to slow the case down." And Watkins starts calling out Royce for basically playing both sides with Marta Daniels and also the candidate that she's running against, Unetta Perkins, and calls him out also for being in bed with all the land developers and real estate people, and gets to a point to where he says, "Clarence, you lost your base." So he's decided that he's going to sit out the primary. And then immediately you see Lieutenant Hoskins, who used to work with Herc on the mayor's detail. He immediately snitches to Rawls about Watkins breaking with Royce. A lot going on in this scene. What are your thoughts?
There is a lot going on, but again, it's set up. We know where it's going, and they're setting up. The reason that there's a lot is they're taking their time to show you how all this goes down. But you named everything that happened.
So We go to Herc, Dozerman, and Sidner. They set up a camera outside of no, no, let me hold on, let me slow down because I went ahead. So we go to the Western. So the Western District and the MCU, Major Crimes Unit, they have failed raids on Marlowe's corners. Of course, and we knew this was going to happen. And I think of course, they intentionally did this. The cops were on the wrong corners. They up here breaking into old folks places. Grandpa and grandma looking like, like what's this basically. And Marimo, of course, was completely out of his element. He says that we had this as a stash house. He says, well, he said no. He says they were tipped off, and then Herc kind of mocks him and says, "Yeah, you think?" And he says, "Well, we had this as a stash house." He says, "Well," and Herc says, "Well, they moved the stash houses." And then Marimo, out of just pure frustration, says, "Marlo Stansfield thinks he's smarter than us, but he's not. He actually is a lot smarter." So we just see the incompetence of Marimo as a leader and how poor leadership can look amongst cops. And you have cops on the wrong corners and harassing old people, and it was a comedy of errors in regards to these raids. What were your thoughts?
So here's what the show is trying to say. The show is trying to say that, I mean, and they said this many times, right? The wrong people get promoted.
Yes.
Right? And when the wrong people get promoted, X, Y, and Z happens. This is not about incompetence. I hear that, and I wish it was, but this is actually more insidious than incompetence, because remember, he was placed there to tear the detail down.
Right.
So he's actually going about his orders. Now, I will agree with you, the character thinks he has the right idea how to go after Marlo Stanfield, but he's just very, very much middle management, if not lower. The reason why Rawls puts him there is because he knows what he's going to do, and he knows he's not going to make any progress.
Right.
That's the whole point of putting him there. Like, we cannot forget that with this guy, because it's an important point. This actually is the thread of everything, Real. So I'm going to keep coming back on this one, because this is a hallmark of the show. He is supposed to be in a position, this guy I'm talking about, and then by extension, Rawls. Rawls is actually the most important one. We're supposed to be looking out for the public safety. None of this has anything to do with public safety. That's the point. That's the point.
Yeah. And to continue on that, we go to the MCU Major Crime Unit. We go to Herc, Dozerman, Signer. So at the end of the scene, when the raids are failed, he goes to Herc as his consigliere, so to speak, to say what should we do next. Now, this also shows where the MCU is at right now. When Herc is being advised, when you're going to Herc for advice on how to move, on what next move to make. So Herc comes up with this grand idea of setting up a camera in Marlowe's spot at night. It goes along with Dozerman and Signer. They set up a camera, and of course, Marlowe's peoples sees this as soon as they pull off in the van. What are your thoughts on this?
Shut up.
So we go to Naaman and Weebay. Naaman, Weebay, and Naaman's mother, Delonda, they go visit Weebay in jail. She's, of course, frustrated by Naaman's suspension. She says, says that she's going to, she leaves to go use the bathroom so that they can talk, so Naaman and Weebay can talk. So you have Naaman, Weebay advising Naaman to kind of slow it down, and then Weebay, basically throws it back at him, saying, you dropped out in 6th grade to go make money for Avon and Stringer back in the day, Weebay says, you're right, can't throw stones, but maybe you should slow it down a bit. You know how your mom gets. And then Naaman tells Weebay about Marlo punking Bodie taking over his corner. He of course, puts up the front that, what he would have done, what he would have done, he would have got a gun and went to the mattresses basically. And Weebay compliments him saying that you all heart, you got it where it counts. And Weebay says what would have happened to Marlo back in the day had a Marlo came along during their time, what would have happened to Marlo? He said, and basically tells Naaman, hey, the game out here is different. It's not about codes, not about family. Um, Things have changed. So you had this interaction between Naaman and Weebay. What were your thoughts?
Set up. Good scene, but set up.
That was a great scene, for sure. Chris and Andre. So Chris, they go through. So Chris shoots delivery lady in Andre's store. Uh, then he hits Andre. Then he basically pistol whips Andre, hits him in the head with the butt of his gun. So Andre's bleeding. He says, gives Andre the instructions to say Omar. Uh, second straight episode, we see Chris just without hesitation murder basically a civilian. Without
Not
hesitation.
basically.
Murders a civilian without hesitation.
Yeah.
For the second straight episode. So Chris has no Chris. Whatever needs to get done in order for the organization, in order for Marlo, in order to protect Marlo, he's going to do it without hesitation. What are your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, that's nice, Real. This doesn't have anything to do with protecting Marlo. Ain't nobody coming for Marlo. Marlo says it himself. They're trying to draw Omar out.
Right.
That's the thing, and that's when it goes back to like that scene that you were talking about with Chris early in them talking about it. They're like, that's how you know like that's his consigliere, because they're putting together like the different plans and so on. And that's essentially like what this scene is saying. It's saying two things. A, these are the real life consequences of all of everything that is going, all of this that is going on. People die. This is real. This happens. And so that's one. And then the second thing is that when Chris and Marlo get together, they're planning something not nice.
So we see them go through with the plan, kill the delivery lady, and we'll see how this plays out. Of course, Bulk and Freeman, again, throughout the course of this episode, Bulk and Freeman was just continuously looking for bodies. Now they're looking through not potholes, but those what you call those with construction people underground. They were checking those now. So again, they're coming up short. Potholes, yes. Sewers, yes. In the sewer, yes. In the sewer.
Yeah.
In the sewers. So they were checking the sewers. And again, coming up with nothing. They're continuously coming up with nothing. And then, Bunk, as you see, Bunk and Freeman. Again, not much from this episode, but again, they just keep continuously coming up short in terms of finding where Marlo is hiding these bodies. What were your thoughts?
Set up.
We see Herc and Signer in the surveillance truck watching Marlo speak. Herc recommends all we need is some lip readers to and we got them. So Herc thinks his plan. Obviously, Herc is gonna thinking that his plan is gonna work. So you see them looking at the camera. looking at the camera, looking through the, looking to see Marlo speaking to a couple of people, and then what were your thoughts on this quick scene?
Setup.
So then we see Chris and Marlo. Chris picks up Marlo. They discuss the cops setting up the camera, so Marlo knows that the camera is there. Doesn't know what he's going to do about it as of yet. And then they go see Prop Joe. What were your thoughts?
Setup.
So we go to Randy. Randy and two other boys. So Randy, again, not the greatest decision. I get it. Randy's not making good decisions throughout the course of the season. So
yeah, this is horrible decision.
This was no. I mean, both of them. I mean, the one. I mean, go back to the Lex, that decision. So
don't compare these. This is horrible. Just go through the scene, but be careful.
I'll go through it. So he
remember we're in 2021 as you're going through this scene.
Yes. No. So I'm
just saying, remember we're in 2021.
Yeah. So he goes, Randy, another student approaches Randy. Well, two students approaches Randy, offer to pay him to watch, to stand by as those two boys were going to a bathroom with a young lady. And Randy stands lookout. And Randy stands lookout. The boys say that, we're not going to be in there all day. And they go in, the two boys go into the bathroom with a young lady. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, Randy's supposed to be a lookout. It's a horrible decision and it's setting up for something big.
Yeah.
That's it, I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah, again, Randy gets himself caught up in something that, easily could have walked away from. You see Herc working for Royce as campaign officers, trying to get voters. I thought the scene was kind of hilarious when he was on the phone. He was like, he says, Royce has to be the guy because why would a white man tell you to? He says, why would me being a white man tell you to vote against another white man? So he says Royce I'm telling you, Royce is the best candidate. So you see Royce, not Royce, you see Herc working campaign offices, trying to earning that promotion to sergeant. Nothing comes for free. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, you named it.
We see Randy. So we go back to Randy. He's continually looking. He's still looking out. And Colvin, and of course, Colvin walks past. Colvin doesn't know. Colvin, of course, doesn't know what's going on. Colvin's just walking down the hallway, and Randy basically says, "I have my hall pass." And Colvin's like, good for you. So we see that again, Randy. So we see that as Colvin walks past, the two boys and the girls come out the bathroom. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, again, horrible choice. This is leading up to something big. Setup.
Yeah, both Randy decisions in this season were like major plot points. Both decisions. We go to Andre and Crutchfield. So Andre, Crutchfield, and Detective Holly. Andre identifies Omar for the killing of the delivery lady. And we'll see how that plays out. We go to Carcetti, Rawls, and Norman, and the campaign manager. So Rawls tells Carcetti and Norman Wilson about Watkins breaking off with Royce. Of course, Rawls got this from Lieutenant Hopkins. they wait until Rawls gets in the car and then they head on out to go to try to go to try to talk to Watkins to go to Watkins. What are your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, set up, but again, this is showing us how this whole thing is going to come about.
So we go to Prop Joe and Marlo meeting for the second time in as many weeks. Initially, Marlo says if we're just talking, then I'm out. But Prop Joe, of course, tells him he knew about the card game. Um, Marlo asked why didn't he bring it up to him or tip him off to it. And Marlo, of course, Marlo is not part of the co-op. And Prop Joe shows him some warrants for a drug kingpin. And Prop Joe basically says, "Hey, I might tip him off, I might not." But Charlie says, this guy is not part of the co-op. It basically says, how much do you think a man would pay for his freedom? So Marlo tells him about the fact that they're taking pictures that somebody's taking pictures of him. And that is kind of what seals the deal with with Prop Joe getting Marlo to join the co-op. Marlo tells him now you have some reason to look into it. They shake hands, and now Marlo is a part of the co-op. Prop Joe gets what he's wanted basically the entire season. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, no, you named it.
And be careful what you get. Be careful what you wish for. We go to Watkins and Carcetti. So Carcetti is trying to, of course, convince Watkins to join them. Watkins said that he was one to sit out the primary, but not publicly cross the mayor. And you hear Carcetti saying, "Hey, after this is over, if I get elected, I'm gonna need him. I'm gonna need you. And I appreciate your voice. Appreciate you're gonna have a voice in my administration because I'm gonna need it." So Carcetti is rolling out the full court press, so to speak, in terms of the recruitment of Delegate Watkins. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought the most interesting part of that was like him saying like, I will pick it up with anybody that you give me that you like me to. And so like, anyway, I mean, I think like with anything in life, this is timed at a certain time, right? Like, and so like just knowing all that we know about our election process right now, I'm just very in tune to like this part of the wire, probably more than I've ever been. And so, yeah, I just paid attention to that a little bit more. That he says to Watkins, whoever you want me to put on the ticket will be on the ticket. Again, this is not how it should be done, but it is how it's done.
And then we go to Michael, Duquan, and Randy. Duquan shows them the dead body shows them the dead body. Of course, somebody that Chris has killed in the vacant, and they all realize that dead is dead. No zombies, no boogeyman. That dead is dead. And the episode wraps up with that. What was your thought on that particular scene? We begin with the kids, and again we end with the kids.
Yeah. Well buttoned. That's it. Just a ribbon on it.
And of course, going back to themes, I had corner kids versus stoop kids. That will play out certainly as throughout the course of the rest of the season, and also again, good advice and bad advice. You see Chris Partlow give Marlo some good advice. You see Herc give Lieutenant Marimo some bad advice. You see, so we saw the consigliaries in action. We see alliances We see alliances being made between with Royce and Ross, also with Chris, Chris trying to, Chris and Marlo trying to get Michael, and Prop Joe, the biggest alliance, of course. Prop Joe and Marlo. Prop Joe finally gets Marlo to join the co-op. So we'll certainly see how that plays out. Who do you have for MVP?
I mean, I don't really have like the biggest MVP this week, and so I'm just going to share the Chardine and the MVP award with Naaman and Weebay. That was an awesome scene. It didn't mean anything. It didn't do anything for furthering the plot, but in terms of just like, I will all day, every day be here for two black men just talking to each other, a black man and his son just talking, even though it was in the jail thing. What they were talking about was just like such real life stuff. Yeah. I love that scene. So I'm spreading all the wealth to get MVP and to get Chardine.
MVP, I had Norman for his advice to Carcetti about.
You said Norm? Nice.
About how to deal with the Tony Gray situation in terms of that. That turned out to be it's a great strategy. It was smart in terms of how to deal with the information that they received about the Braddock case and how to play that card. So again, yeah, Norman, that's another guy, another consigliere that gave great advice. It was Norman, the campaign manager. And Chardine, I had Marlo and Chris for their strategy in terms of how to go about Omar. We've seen, again, we saw how it didn't work out for the Barksdales in terms of going about with Omar. So Chris says, you know what? We need to try something different. Try something different. So, and Marlo, to his credit, what great leaders do is you listen to the people that you put in charge or that you trust in regards to important parts of your operation. Otherwise, why have them in those positions? So I took that as the Chardine scene for the Chardine scene. That's going to wrap it up for episode 5 of the Wire Remix. Alliances. Next week, of course, next time we will have episode 6, Margin of Error, which will be a big episode, to say the least, as we get into this election, go deep into the election, into the primaries, in terms of the show, and continue to develop and find out about these kids as their stories will be told throughout the course of this season. As always, thanks to Rob Sapp for joining the program.
All right, appreciate you. Y'all stay safe.
No question about it. As always, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, www.youtube.com. Ril Dil podcast. This episode will be up before later on tonight. I will see you next time on the next edition. I will see you next time on later on this week for a podcast, and of course, I will see you next. We will see you next time as we continue to discuss The Wire Remix Season 4.